Okay, so most missed questions from our stats quiz. So that would have been the first one. And again, I think some of the questions we went through were the last time. Hopefully at this point, this question's not discussing it. But remember to discuss last time, no matter what this looks like, this is 25%, 25%, 25%, and 25%. Because it's very likely to see those questions like what percentage of data is over 75 was the one we went over last time. And so that would be everything from 75 to the right. So that's 50% is greater than 75 for the scores. What percentage of the class scored less than 60? That would be 60 to the left. So less than 60%, I'm sorry, less than a score of 60 would be 25%. And if I'm writing this where that makes no sense to you, hopefully you're tracking the words I'm saying. So 25% of the class scored less than a 60 because you go from 60 to the left. And again, I can't say it enough. It does not matter what it looks like. So obviously, like this box looks a lot smaller than the other ones. It's still 25, 25, 25. So when we manually did our median Q1, Q2, we were breaking each chunk of data. We cut it in half, and we cut it in half again, which would give us, like if you think about a dollar, cut it in half, you have 50 cents, cut it in half again, you get 25 cents. So no matter what this looks like proportionally, this is 1/4 of the data for each marking. All right, so for this question, which of these is must be true? I will say for Math 1, a big thing, a lot of the questions, which I've talked to you guys a couple times already, but I'll say it a lot, the math is not necessarily new. It's the kinds of questions and the way they spin them up. So I would just make sure you read it more than once. And now I'm sort of speaking towards EOC skills to make sure we rock that bad boy at the end of the semester. And then obviously any of your quizzes as well along the way. I like to read the question first before I read anything else. So start in the question. And in these, it's not as much information, but especially for math problems that like word problems. Like I go highlight the question first. Then I read back so I know what I'm reading for. So I have a focus. So this is must be true. And I say that because a lot of words to get to the point. They do a lot of not trues and we get excited and we see the word true and we just skip right over the not. So that's why I was saying make sure you read it very carefully. So this is a definitely is true. Our median score, that's going to be our middle line, which is right here, which we know is a 75. So that's not true. The lower quartile, this is your lower quartile. So lower quartile is Q1. So lower quartile is Q1. That's 60. That's not true. Half the scores are between 60 and 75. So 60 and 75. It's not half. It's only 25%. Only 25%. And the IQR is half of the range. So the IQR is Q3 minus Q1. And in this case, Q3 is 80. And Q1 is 60, so minus 60. So we're going to get a 20. And then the range is max minus min, which is going to be 90 minus 50. So we get 40. So the IQR is half of the range because 20 is half of 40. Do you guys have any questions about that question or what we just did? Is it making more sense than it did the first go round maybe? Perfect. All right, so number 2, according to the box plot, what percentage of students study less than 16 hours per week? So 16 less than, that's back to our 25, 25, 25, 25. So what section of the box and whisker is less than 16? What percentage? That's going to be 25%. Even though that tail looks super long, yep, you nailed it, 25%. Again, it does not matter what it looks like. Dot, line, 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 dot. 25, 25, 25, 25. Every single time. So if I was to ask what percentage is greater than 22. So this is our 22. What percentage is greater than 50%? Yeah. So super easy question once you get it in your head, and it's actually a really kind of a gift of a question because there's no magic to it. It's just we have a hard time because it doesn't look equal. We're training our brain to believe that they are equal, each chunk. All right, test scores math 2 classes are shown in the table below. Which measure has the greatest difference between the two classes? The fun and not fun part about these questions is there's no real way to get around it besides doing all the work. And I personally think TI 83s and 84s are a little easier to do this with rather than the Desmos. If you go to your Y equal, that's not it, I'm sorry, stat. So stat, we're going to go to edit, and you have your L1 and L2. So we put in our L1, all our data. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This is sitting in line 11. That's the other reason I like this. So that it lets me know there's 10 pieces of data in there, and I'm sitting in my empty box. So L1. So now that I have all that data in there, I'm going to hit stat, right over to calc. And that's where we're going to get our 1-bar stat. Go all the way down to calculate. And yours may not have those. I'm pretty sure it does, though, the 3 enters like mine did. It depends on if it's an 84, an 83, if it's been updated, all that good fun stuff. Sometimes it'll go straight to it. So your X bar is our mean. So this is mean, or average. Your SX is your standard deviation, just for future reference. So that's a pretty important one. N is the number of terms you have in your column. So if you want to make sure you have everybody in there, N's where you want to check. Minimum. Then we're just going to arrow down. So your 5-number summary is going to be, or the ones that make the box and whisker, are the last 5. So our min is 68, Q1, 78, median, 80. And you could do it by hand as well. Obviously, that's an option. But if we can get you access to the calculator way faster. One other thing, when we hit stat over to calc, 1-bar stat, when it says list, if we go back to our list and we put our second list here, and this may seem easier to you or not, either way, whichever, we could also clear our list 1. So 86, 53. There we go. So stat over to calc, 1-bar stat. Our, oh, no. L1, L2, where'd I lose the button? I know where it is. Down here on your numbers, see where it says L1. Oh, I'm not up enough. Sorry. L1, L2, L3. That's the blue one. So I'm going to hit second because that's the blue key up here. So second, L2. That now tells your calculator to go to list number 2 to get its information versus your L1 we did a minute ago. Then you're going to just, whoops, sorry, hit the wrong button. L2, go all the way through. Just remember you switched it to L2. So we have 77.9 as our mean. Our standard deviation in this case is 16.7. That's not one of these options. I'm just reminding us that it's there. Our N is 10 again. Awesome. Yay. N is 10, which means we have all our data in there. So we're going to scan down to get our 5-number summary. So min is 53. Q1 is 60. Median is 80. 93, and 100 again. So now, once you've done that, our means, if we compare them, which measure has the greatest difference, which means we're going to subtract them from each other. So 83.3 minus 77.9 is going to be a 5.4 difference. So if I subtract those, I get 5.4. Then it said median, so we can jump down here. 80 minus 80, there is no difference. So that's a 0. Definitely not an answer. Mode is the number that repeats itself the most, mode and most. So if we look in our first column, this one I see 86 twice. Oh, there it is, 80, 80. So 80 and 86, the difference would be 6 for our mode. And it would be -6 if we did it in that order. But absolute value, just the difference between the two, the minus space between is going to be 6. IQR, again, is Q3 minus Q1. So 92 minus 78 would be for the first one. Should be 14. And then 93 minus 60 is the last one, and that's going to be 33. So you're comparing 5.4, 0, 6, 14, and 33. 14 to 33, the difference between those two is what we're comparing because we're doing the difference of them, would be 19. So that's our biggest. So IQR is going to be the biggest difference between those two. A lot of work, and I wish I could tell you there's a way to get around doing most of that. There's not. You could maybe not write standard deviation. You needed your min and your max. Oh, you don't need your min and max either for this list of questions, but you did need your everything else. So, unfortunately, it's a full send. You have to do it, right? Okay. Same with this data question. The cool part about this pretty much is, especially if it says standard deviation in the answer choice or it's discussing standard deviation, is it has to be a calculator active question. So we're going to go back to our stat edit. You do not want to go up to the letter L2 and hit clear or delete. You can actually, you can hit clear. If you hit delete, it will remove the column from your calculator. And like I said, I know right now you don't have one in front of you, but just giving you some heads up so you don't put yourself in an extra strife when you finally get it. And I will try to get those out to you guys today. So test 1, I will put that in L1. And then test 2, I'm going to put an L2. So 95, 80. And unfortunately, again, you're going to have to do it this way because I haven't taught you like the standard deviation calculated formula. And I didn't teach it because I feel like you have enough formulas in your mind to memorize, and they don't put this on inactive, so you do have the opportunity to use your calculator. So stat, calc, 1 bar stat. If it's on L2, we'll go to L1 first. So again, second, number 1 at the bottom, we'll get you to your L1. Hit enter all the way through. Your standard deviation, we're going to use SX. So for test 1, our standard deviation is 7.48, just in case. Because standard deviation, sometimes it goes a little further than just your second decimal place. I'm sorry, your first decimal place as far as comparing. So then to get our other one, we're going to hit second number 2 because that'll give us our L2 so we don't have to go back and input our data again. And then go ahead and hit it all the way down. And in this case, our standard deviation is 5.56. So the larger standard deviation is going to be test 1. Medians, just because we're sitting here doing it this way, if you chose to do this, median is your middle term, and there's only 4 terms. If you think about decimals as money, remember they always have to be in order. So $1.89 is less than 2, 3, and 7. Then $2.99, $3.99, $7.49. Our median would be here. So $2.99 plus $3.99 divided by 2 would be the math way to do it. And we get $3.49. If you think money-wise, that's adding $1, and half of $1 is 50 cents. So that might keep you from having to use your calculator if you wanted to avoid it. Now we're in our second set. There's 2 2s, but $2.87 is less than $2.99. Again, if we think about money, maybe that'll help us make sure those stay in the right order. Then $3.28, and then $6.32. So we're looking for what is the difference between the two medians. So you can't get around actually solving them to find them again. So 328 divided by 2 is 314. It's 313.5, but we're talking about these look like monies and stuff, so we'll keep these. Round the nearest hundredth. That's also 2 decimal places, and your answer will be positive. So again, we're talking about the difference. It's not necessarily that you're in the whole one you had first, one you had second. It's just what if you were thinking about counting on a number line with decimals. This is not one that we normally do, but if you're counting from one space to the other, then it's how far are they apart from each other, basically. 349 and 314 are 35 cents apart from each other. So 349 minus 314 is going to be 0.35. Everything a little clearer now than it was? Or we didn't need this at all to begin with? I wanted to make sure, just because I feel like these could be really easy. Cool, perfect. Could be really good EOC questions, like easier to find the answers once you get straight. Awesome, awesome, awesome. All right, now 15. We have 15 minutes. Here we go. So, consecutive odd integers. Again, this is another one of those things that once you break the seal and you finally understand it, super easy. If we're good at putting the word problems together, I guess also could be a little bit of a hang up. But for the basic versions of these, super, super easy. But you got to remember some important things. Other than that, computation-wise, not terribly hard. Consecutive integers. So if they are even or odd, or then the other one is just straight consecutive. Now, both are consecutive, but if they make the conversation that it has to be even or it has to be odd. So we start with a number for either one. So if I wanted consecutive numbers, what is a set of consecutive numbers? You can start with any number you want and give me 3 numbers that are consecutive to each other. Making sure we know what the word consecutive means. What are 3 consecutive numbers? You can make them up. Yeah, perfect. So like we could do 5, 6, 7. And if we wanted 4, 5, 8, we can just keep going, right? Could have started at 0, could have started at a negative, because all I said was consecutive. So that is it. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So in a row, consecutive. If x is equal to 5, how do I get to 6 from 5? Like algebraically. How can I turn an x? If x is 5, how do I turn it into, yes. So x plus 1. Then how do I turn 5 into 7? Yep, excellent. X plus 2. And then if I wanted to get to 8, it'd be x plus 3, dot, dot, dot. And it just keeps going, right? Now, if I wanted a consecutive even set, so even. So let me give me an even number. Perfect, 2. So let's go with 3 consecutive starting at 2. So what's the next even number after 2? Yep. And then let's go one more. Yes, good. Dot, dot, dot. We can do 8, just depending, like 8, 10, 12. So just to make sure we're clear, even means it is divisible by 2. So we have to make sure we understand that. So at this point, with this list that we just made, if x is 2, how did I get to 4? Yep. So it's going to be x plus 2. If x is 2, how did I get to 6? Yep. And if we wanted to go to 8, how did I get to 8 from 2? Excellent. Okay. These are your general rules. Now, you are going to see some of these basic problems in the beginning that you can logic through without using these. Trust me and hear me out. You want to use these because you will forget them. Or you will make stuff up. So if you use them when it's easy and you know the answer, then you're working backwards to learn the process. Because when the word problems gets a little more spun up, if you don't have these, you're stuck. Because you won't be able to mentally logic through it all the way through. Now, before I jump too far ahead, just to prove a point, give me an odd number. You guys pick an odd number. Any odd number. Cool. We got 5. All right, we're going to use all of them. So we're going to do 5, and then the next one would be 7, and then after 7 would be 9, and we keep going. Here's where I've had students get a little confused. From 5, so if x is 5, how did I get to 7? So if I want to turn 5 into 7, what do I do to 5? Yep, add 2. And then if I want to get from 5 to 9, what would I do? Add 4. And then if I wanted to go to 11, then I would add 6. So the big call out is this is your chart for even and odd. Even though that this is 2, 4, 6, it's because even and odd numbers are every other number. They're jumping by 2s. So they are evenly spaced apart. So that's why it's X is the first number, then plus 2, plus 4, plus 6 for even and odd. Somehow when you'll sit down and start doing it, you'll see the 2, 4, 6 and think you did wrong because it's odd. But this is how they count. It's every other one. So only 2 charts are these 2 that you need to know to be able to answer these questions. All right, jumping in. So our first problem, the sum of 3 consecutive. As soon as you see the word odd, mentally make note, odd. So that means I'm using x plus x, x plus 2, x plus 4, x plus 6, and however far I need to go. So the sum of 3 consecutive odds. So the ones I would use would be x, x plus 2, and x plus 4. And you have to start with x, and they have to go in this order. Like you can't just jump to the next one. It said 3 of them, so that's 1, 2, 3. We're done. Is, the sooner you can switch in your brain the word is to equals, it will make word problems light years easier and kind of keep you from getting a little freaked out. So the sum of 3 consecutive odds. So this is the first one, second one, third one. So what we're going to do is add them together. So I'm going to put a plus is 93. Now you're consolidating like terms. So I have an x, and an x. So that's going to give me 3x. Constant. And then from there, it's going to equal 93. Then you have to solve. Keep your great divide and all the good fun stuff. So 3x, we're going to subtract 6 from both sides. So 3x is going to equal 87. 3 times x, so we're going to divide by 3. 87 divided by 3 is going to be 29. This said find the numbers. We have a multiple choice question. Multiple choice is super awesome, but especially with answers like this because we already have 29. So 27, 31's gone. Hopefully, you know 30 is an even number because I could divide that by 2, so we could stop there. But if not, find the number. So 29, 30 is even. Then it's going to be 31. Then the next one's going to be 33. So that's why B is your answer for this one. Again, that one is super, super basic, and I would look at that as being one of those gifts. These are part of the EOC release packet, these style questions. So when I always talk about going to the EOC with a question in your back pocket that you know you can get right, with some practice, these should be one of those style questions. Because we're running into a little bit of like we're right there at 922, I want you to see more EOC with me here so you can ask me questions. So number 2 is going to be exactly the same, 3 consecutive integers, except there's no odd or even. So 3 consecutive integers. So since there's not even, we're going to do x as one of them, x plus 1, and x plus 2, because then we could go on if we needed to do. So numbers right in a row, x plus 1, x plus 2. And then the sum, which means we're going to add them, is 68. So we would add the addition is 168, which is the greatest of the 3. So the greatest of the 3. Call out will be that sometimes these numbers will be negative and don't grab the biggest number because obviously when it's negative, the smaller number is greater because it's closer to 0 and working to the positive side. I'm going to skip the solving part just because I feel like the setup and reading the questions is where you start making the bigger mistakes. Number 3 is find 3 consecutive integers. Again, the word even or odd is not there. So we're going to do x plus 1, x plus 2. It says the sum, so we're going to add them together, is 204. And then it says find 3, so the answer would be all 3 of them. Same for number 4, but again, this would be that point where you end up with that negative 99. It says 3 consecutive, so again, we're going to use x plus 1, x plus 2, sum, we're going to add, equals negative 99, and then solve. Now, number 5. This is going to be EOC-like. Might feel like a lot for the moment. But hang in there with me for a second because I think you can do it without a problem. It's just a matter of not letting yourself get psyched out. Now, 3 consecutive. So I'm looking for 3 numbers. They have to be odd. So as soon as I see that, before I get upset with everything that's about to ask me, I have x plus 2, and I just messed up, x plus 4. That's our 3 numbers because it says odd. That'll give me 5, 7, 9, or whatever 3 odd numbers they need, such that the sum of the first and the third, so the first and the third, so x and x plus 4 are the ones we're going to use. The sum, it says equals the sum of the second, which is x plus 2, and 31. And we're going to add them together. Is everybody okay with where I got that stuff from at the moment? Not saying you're like, oh, cool, I can go do it, but you know where it came from. All right, lovely, lovely, lovely. I like it. So it's a little bit messier. We want to clean up both sides with like terms. It's going to give me 2x. We'll bring down that plus 4 as is. Equals, I have constant. So x is still the same. And that's going to give me 33. Now, you want to get your x's on one side and your whole numbers on the other. I always work towards, okay, can you tell me which part? So this is the first term, because it says sum of the first and the third, which is this one. Because this is number 1, the first number. Like if we did 5, this is the second number. That would be 7, and this number would be 9. So that's the third number. Because that's the second number. So equals, so then we got to the equal part, the sum of the second term, which is this one, plus 31. And that is why I make this list before I even remotely start to translate what they're saying. Because once you have this list, and maybe writing the list left to right is not super helpful for you guys. Maybe it's better for you to write it this way. That sounds silly, but you got to do what makes sense to you. So first, second, third. So the first and the third sum equals the second and 31. So the sum of the second and 31. All right, beautiful. We're going to work towards a positive x. So I'm going to subtract 1x from this side, subtract 1x from this side, because remember that's that imaginary 1. We want those to go away. And so we end up with 1x plus 4. Or x plus 4 equals 33. We need x by itself, so we're going to subtract 4 from both sides. And we get x equals 29. Now, one way you can check this definitely says it has to be odd. So if I ended up with 30 at the end, we've made a mistake. The number has to be odd, and it could be how you set it up. It could be something you calculated, but don't jump off the deep. I mean, use those little like obvious things to check yourself before you just go hit full send and get an answer choice. So x is 29. So after 29, if x is equal to 29, x plus 2 is going to give me 31, and x plus 4 is going to give me 33. So my list of numbers is 29, 31, and 33. I think for most students, the setup part is the hardest. All right, 2 more minutes, so I'm going to keep on pushing. Number 6, 3 consecutive odd. So again, we're going to use x, x plus 2, x plus 4, such that the sum of the first and the third, so first, second, third. So I'm going to put the first and the third. It said sum equals the sum of the second. So this is basically exactly like the last one. X plus 2 because that's our second term. And 43. And it said sum. And then we're going to solve for x, just like we did the last one. And I'm just going to skip that part for right now because I'm not sure that I think solving is going to be the hardest part. I think it is the setting up. So I want to set up, since we only have like a minute left, I could probably do 2 more as far as setups. All right, find 4 consecutive even. Even does not matter. We're still using x x plus 2, x plus 4, and this time we need 4 of them, so we're going to do x plus 6. We need one more. So I have the first term, second, third, fourth term. Such that 2 times the sum, so 2 times on the outside, the sum of the first and second, so that's x and x plus 2, is 14 more, so that's plus 14, more than, so I'm going to put it on the end. Kind of like when we were talking about last week about less than, or earlier in the week about less than 4. Like if it's 2 less than 4, it's 4 minus 2, not 2 minus 4. So it's going to be 14 more, so I added 14. Then 3 times the fourth one, which is the fourth term, would be x plus 6. That one's a lot. Do you see where I got the things, though? The parts to put it together. Where the 2 in the front came from, and why we used x and x plus 2. 3 or x plus 6. Good. Just to call out, I would clean this up before you distribute the 2. So I would write this as 2x plus 2. Then distribute your 2. This one's pretty clean, so you could go straight into this one and start multiplying just for some like orders of operation reminders. But otherwise, again, you're going to have lots more practice with this. It is definitely going to be an EOC question, so I did not want to skip it today at all. Just like I promised there'll be a stats question as well.